Okay, this is our group's extra credit for the titration lab. Antacid is used for correcting acidity, especially in the stomach. We use it because in these experiments, it is used to neutralize the HCl and raise the pH levels. The purpose of using it is to understand how acids can be neutralized by antacids and how proper measurements are important to getting accurate results. The titration is the name given for the procedure in which a base is added to an acid until it is neutralized. The materials we use for this lab is the burette, the ring stand, the burette clamp, and the Erlenmeyer flask. The chemicals as well that we use was HCl, NaOH, and calcium carbonate. The first lab that we did for titration, our objective was to illustrate the concept of neutralization of acids by the addition of bases and to give hands-on experience of the techniques of titration. The procedure that we did was we added 15 milliliters of HCl and NaOH to the burettes, then drained 25 milliliters into the Erlenmeyer flask slowly, and as well added phenolphthalein and swirled it around until it was faint pink. The first lab was more of a kind of run through because we hadn't ever done it before, so it was more kind of like a warm-up for us for these upcoming labs. The conclusion of this lab was the acid was completely neutralized by NaOH. The third lab that we did for titration, our objective was to determine the efficiency of generic and name brand antacids and to determine the percentage of calcium carbonate in the antacids. Our procedure was we added 50 milliliters of HCl to the burette, then drained 25 milliliters into the Erlenmeyer flask. Then added our calcium carbonate to the acid flask. Then our NaOH was added to complete the titration in the same flask. Next we added our phenolphthalein and swirled it around until it was faint pink and repeated this for both the generic acid and the brand name. The conclusion is the name brand had more calcium carbonate and neutralized more acid in the end. Okay, looking at this chart, this is the price per tablet. As you can see, the name brand went up to about 9 cents. The overall was 10 cents. And then as well, the generic went up to about 4 cents, so leaving about a 5 cents different. So even with the name brand having a higher percentage of the calcium carbonate, it is more expensive than the generic not having as much of a percentage compared to it being more cost efficient. Okay, so this is our bar graph comparing both the name brand antacids and then the generic brand. Here we have our percentage of our calcium carbonate per tablet. As you can see, the name brand does have a higher percentage of the calcium carbonate. It is at about a 27%, and then as well as our generic brand has about a 16%. So there is quite a bit of difference. The overall conclusion for the titration labs was out of the two brands of the generic is the cheaper choice that gives more tablets with less calcium carbonate concentration, whereas the name brand is more expensive with less tablets, but a higher calcium carbonate concentration. After the conclusion, we kind of listed our pros and cons. Something you need to watch out for when doing titration labs, you need to make sure you read the directions thoroughly. You need to make sure that you will have little room for calculation errors. The phenolphthalein is a sensitive pH indicator, and the pink antacid tablets are hard to tell with your phenolphthalein. Some pros about the titration labs was we did have good lab instructors, to kind of help us out, which is always good to have. If there are any questions, you're working with chemicals, so you want to make sure you get those all right. And then as well, you do get more experience when working with dealing with chemicals and equations and